The two topics that we're going over today are exponential functions and then domain and range of all types of functions, linear, exponential, and quadratic. Everybody's calculators should be down. They should be eyes on the board paying attention with me. So the first thing we're going to go over for day 9 is exponential functions. So at the top of your page, I want you to write y equals a times b to the x power. This is what an exponential function looks like. The a is the starting amount. It is also your y-intercept. So right up here, that is your y-intercept. This a is the starting amount. It's also your y-intercept. Okay, the b, and I'm going to come over here and write all this. The b is the growth or decay factor. If the b is greater than 1, it's growth. If it's less than 1, it's what? Decay. If it's growth and you have to come up with the number, they're going to give you a percent. If it's growth, you take 1 and add the percent to it. Change the percent to a decimal and add it to 1. If it's decay, you take the percent, turn it to a decimal, and subtract it from 1. Do y'all remember this? Okay, I'm going to say it again. If it's growth, it's a number greater than 1. So you take the percent it's growing by, change it to a decimal, and add it to 1. If it's decay, which is less than 1, you take the percent, change it to a decimal, and subtract from 1. Okay? All right. Let's answer some questions over. It says, which statement about this function is true? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is type it in my y equals button so I can see some things. So I go to y equals. I'm going to type in 16, open parentheses, 0.5, close to the x power. Does the graph include 0.41? Well, I can go to the table to see if that's true. Does it include 41? Yes, so that's true, and I'm only selecting 2 answers. Do y'all remember what an asymptote is? A line it approaches but never touches. Exponential functions always have an asymptote, and they're usually always y equals 0. They're not always, but they're usually in Algebra 1, y equals 0, okay? Does the graph have no horizontal asymptote? No, it does have a horizontal asymptote, and if you look at the graph, which my windows are all changed from earlier today, so I'm going to change it back to negative 10, positive 10, negative 10, positive 10. You can see that it does have a horizontal asymptote, and it's approaching the 0, but it's never touching it. So do y'all see that? So that's not true. The coordinates of the x-intercept are 16, 0. Guys, does it even have an x-intercept? It never touches the x-axis. It approaches it, so no. The coordinates of the y-intercept are 0, 0.5. What did I say was the y-intercept? The a. The a is what? So no, that is not the y-intercept. The graph has a horizontal asymptote. Does it have a horizontal asymptote? Yes. But what is the equation of a horizontal asymptote? What axis is it crossing? So it's y equals 0. It is not x equals 0. X equals 0 would look like this. Do y'all see the asymptote? It's going like it's right here at y equals 0. So no, that's not true. The coordinates of the y-intercept are 0, 16. Is that true? How do I know? Because this is the y-intercept. And if I didn't know that, I could look at the table, and it is at 0, 16. Okay, let's go to the next question, number 2. The fox population in Rocky Mountain National Forest is decreasing, so that's your clue word that we're going to do decay, at a rate of 2% each year. There are currently 76,000 foxes in the forest. Write a function that models this situation. All right, so here we go. I need to write it as y equals a times b to the x power. What is the starting amount? 76,000. So it's going to be y equals 76,000, open parentheses. Since it's decreasing, am I going to do 1 plus 2% or 1 minus 2%? So I'm going to do 1 minus, and I have to change 2% to a decimal, which is 0.02 to the x power. And then to finish that off, just 1 minus 0.02 is what? So y equals 76,000, open parentheses, 0.98 to the x power. How do I know this is decay? Because this number is less than 1. Make sense? Yes or no? Okay, everybody good with why I subtracted there? Okay, and I wrote that right here for you. All right, this last one, which graph represents that, guys? Just use your calculator. You do know right away the y-intercept is what? 5. So I could take off A, I could take off C, but I couldn't take off either of these because they both have a y-intercept of 5. So then I just go for my calculator from there. So 5 times 1/3 to the x power. Hit graph and it'll show you. Should be decreasing from left to right. So right there, I could have taken this one off because this is doing what from left to right? Increasing. So, but the calculator will do it for you. Any questions on exponential functions? Okay, go to day 10. Now we're going to talk about domain and range. We've been going over this all year. We are not going to look at specifics. We're going to do linear, quadratic, and exponential. The main thing you need to ask yourself when you're finding a domain and range is it discrete or is it continuous? Discrete means that you would just have dots that are not connected. When would it be discrete? If I say the number of students in my classroom, can I have half of a student? No, that would be discrete because I cannot have half of a student. Make sense? Okay, when would it be continuous? Maybe if I'm talking about how many hours I work. Can I work an hour exactly? Can I work an hour and 10 minutes? So that would be continuous like this where you connect it and it keeps going. Now, continuous doesn't mean it has to keep going, but if the dots are connected, that's continuous. Okay, so what's the difference? When you have discrete, your domain and range will be specific numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Where continuous will not be specific numbers, they would be like from 0 to 4. That is continuous. Discrete would be like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Do y'all see the difference? If it's continuous, you're saying the domain can be anything between 0 and 4. If it's discrete, you're saying it has to be 0 or 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Everybody understand? Okay, so when you're writing domains and range, you have to ask yourself, am I going to write specific answers because it's discrete, or am I going to make an inequality because it goes from one to the other? Okay? All right, let's look at the first one. The table shows some ordered pairs of a quadratic function. That right there tells me what the graph looks like. It's going to be a parabola. Are y'all with me? A parabola always has a domain, because what happens with a parabola? It looks like this, right? It keeps going left and right forever and ever and ever. Yes? So the domain's usually all real numbers. But it either has a minimum or a maximum. So that's telling me about the range. Okay, so everybody good. Do y'all see the vertex? Where it's symmetrical on both sides. Right here, do you see that it starts to repeat itself? Well, just here, because it's not counting by the same things. But right here and right here, it starts to repeat itself. So if I was to graph this, and I'm just going to freehand it, my lowest point is at -1, -14. And then from there, it starts to go up like that. So that helps me see this quadratic. Okay? So, is the range all real numbers? What is range? The y's. Is the range all real numbers?
No.
Nope. Because it has a lowest point. Is the domain all real numbers greater than or equal to 0? No. The domain goes forever both ways. Is the range, the y's, all real numbers greater than or equal to -14? Yes, they're greater than. They're going up from -14. Is the domain all real numbers? Yes, because it's going to keep going to the right and it's going to keep going to the left forever. Now this next one, we're going to read it together, and I don't want you to say it out loud. I want you to ask yourself, would this be a discrete or continuous function? Okay, so let's read it. The total cost to throw a party can be found using the function C equals 28G plus 75, where G is the number of guests attending the party. If there are at least 20, but not more than 25 guests attending the party, what would the range be for this situation? I want you to think to yourself, would this be continuous or discrete? So what do y'all think? Okay, let's read it again. G is the what? Number of guests. There are at least 20, but not more than 25 guests. So you're going to ask yourself, can I have half of a guest? Can you have half of a guest? No. So is this continuous or is this discrete? This is discrete. The reason is you cannot have half of a guest. You can either have, I need everybody's eyes with me. Some of us are not paying attention. How many does it say I'm going to have? I'm going to have 20 to 25 guests. I can't have 20 and a half. I can have 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So the domain, it didn't ask for it, but I need it to find the range. The domain is 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Does everybody agree? Do y'all agree we cannot have 20.5? So I need the range, because that's what it asked for this situation. Where can I go in my calculator to find the y's? What did they already give me? The equation. So where can I go to put equation in? Y equals. So I'm going to go to Y equals. I'm going to type in 28x plus 75. I'm going to go to my table, and I am looking for the y's for these x's, because that's what the domain has to be. So the y's have to be whatever the value is that goes with that x. Okay, when x is 20, what is y? 635. When x is 21, y is 663. When x is 22, 691, 719, 747, and 775. So the range, you would list it out and say, the range is 635, 663, and you would list these numbers out. This is your range. Do y'all understand why we did not write an inequality for that? Are y'all good? All right, number 3. Which graph best represents a function with a domain of all real numbers less than or equal to 6? So domain, I'm going to write that. The domain is x. less than or equal to 6. So that means on the x-axis, so I'm only looking from here, is it less than or equal to 6 on A? Yes. Let's look at C. Is this less than or equal to 6, meaning going to the left? Nope, that's greater than or equal to 6. For B, that didn't have anything to do with 6. Where would people get confused with this one? They looked at the range instead of the domain. So no, and then no. So the answer was A. Okay, I'm going to pass out your assignment and then we'll go over a few. Okay, so Blitz Day 9 is the exponential functions. If it's asking you to write the function and it's giving you a table, you're going to use stat. You're going to put it in and you're going to choose option
4.
No. 4 is linear, 5 is quadratic, and 0 is exponential. You don't have to memorize that. So if y'all look at stat, as soon as you go to calc, you can scroll, like you'll see 4 says lin for linear, 5 says quad for quadratic, and if you keep scrolling to 10, which is 0, exponential. Okay? Go to, let me see what I think y'all will need help on. Go to day 10. This is domain and range. What is the main thing you're asking yourself? Is this discrete or is it continuous? Okay, so when it's a word problem, that's what you're really focused on. So let's look at 1 and 2 together and see if they're continuous or discrete. Number 1 says, the total weight of a shipping crate is modeled by this equation. So I can put that in y equals to see the domain and range. Do y'all agree? But I need to know, is it continuous or discrete? It says, where C is the total weight of the crate with B boxes. Can you have half of a box? No. I have a box, and that's it. Okay? I'm not going to chop my box in half, just like I wouldn't chop a person in half. Okay? So is this continuous or discrete? So this one's going to be discrete. It asks for the domain and range, and it gives you a specific. It says if each crate holds a maximum of 6 boxes. So your domain is from 0 to, I did not say an inequality from 0 to 6. It's 0 or 1 or 2. You see what I'm saying? Or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Then, so you're going to write the domain, and then you're going to find the range that goes with that domain. And you can use your y equals button and go to second table. Now look at number 2. The cost of hiring a plumber to work X hours on a project can be modeled using a linear function. They didn't give you the function, just so you know. The plumber charges a fixed cost of $70 plus an additional $35 per hour. Can y'all write a function out of that? Y equals what?
35x plus 70.
35x plus 70. The plumber works a maximum of 9 hours per day. What is the domain and range? Now stop. We're talking about the domain as hours. Can you work an hour and a half? Yes, so this is not discrete. This is continuous. So your domain and your range will be inequalities. Meaning, like, if the domain was 0 to 20, it would be 0 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 20. Make sense? Now, you have to make your domain based off this right here. The plumber works a maximum of 9 hours per day. So how many hours is he working? 0 to 9. And then you're going to find the range based on that using your calculator. Does that make sense? Okay.